another episode. I'm Salvador, I study chemistry and biology.
I'm Trisha, I study human rights.
I'm Helena, I study math and philosophy.
I'm Omer, I study computer science.
And welcome to the best podcast in the whole world. Today we're going to talk about media. And we're going to start by, well, you had a first ideas.
So I guess we all know that we're all very influenced by media, but I think what I want to add on to that is, I think a lot of us consider ourselves critical thinkers, or others may be critical thinkers, and therefore we're kind of immune to media, or at least a bit less susceptible to it, because we believe we have the ability to critically analyze and be objective and compare sources, etc., and therefore make more informed decisions based on objectivity rather than just this very biased presentation of why whatever product is the best thing, or whatever video is the best thing on YouTube, let's say. And what I wanted to say is actually I think that's not the case. I think we're all extremely influenceable. And the reason is, no matter how much of a critical thinker you can be, we really don't have that much time and energy and space normally to make or to critically evaluate decisions we make. So for example, if you're just trying to get lunch at some point, like you're pretty hungry, you're just going to go probably to the closest place, order maybe the healthiest thing if that's what you feel like, and that's that. You're not going to compare all the places in the location, prices, nutrition, become like a god at all of that stuff overnight. Or let's say your phone breaks and you're a student and it's like the middle of finals week, you need your phone to like quickly Google things or whatever. So you're not necessarily going to sit down and break down Android versus Apple, all the different software stuff, hardware stuff, whatever. You're just going to buy the new iPhone because it's probably great and everyone has it, etc. So that's kind of where I stand there, and I'm curious to see if you guys agree as people who I think are critical thinkers.
I also agree that it doesn't really matter, I guess maybe to some extent, but at the same time, I think the question isn't that much about being a critical thinker, because I think advertisements and media, they target people based on their human nature and aspects of the brain that are there, independent whether you think critically or not. So a lot of it is targeted for your unconscious, and the advertisements are based on colors and shapes and all of those things to get your attention. And it doesn't really matter whether you study in the best university ever, you still have that human nature that focuses the attention in those kinds of things. So in the world that we have today, in which we're bombarded by all of these different informations and a bunch of advertisements and everything, you know. For example, also like even us, you know, we study here and, you know, we read all these texts, but then like we arrive home and we want just to like lay down and watch Netflix or something like that, right? You know, we want that time in which we're just passive and we just watch things. And, you know, watching things as opposed to like maybe the time of radio or something like that, in which at least you only heard, right? You could imagine a bit more. I think the era of visual stimulus, which is nowadays, is just, it's really hard to get away from that, even being a critical thinker.
Yeah, this really makes me think of things like Amazon, where if you need, let's say, a water bottle, and you go on Amazon, I'd say like 90% of people that I know just buy the highest rated one at the very top. It doesn't matter what else there is. And to me, this presents a really big like human rights problem in a way, and just like a stable economy, because of course, if everyone buys that first one that's the highest rated, then all of the other ones who aren't as rated, aren't as used, like won't get any attention, and it'll just keep building and building and building. It's the same with something like Yelp, right, where you rate the restaurant that you go, because let's say a restaurant just starts. Instead of going to that restaurant and giving those business owners a chance, everyone will just go to the restaurant next to it that has been established and rated very highly. So I think we have to be really careful about just following the herd, and think of it as not just the issue of easy access for us and saving time, but also the issue of all these people around us who won't get business and literally like will have to give up on what they're doing just because companies like Amazon are making it really easy for us.
Yeah, I also think, you know, that being just a sheep, it can be very dangerous to some extent. And I would be more specific in identifying like what a critical thinker is, because I think one is not just either a critical thinker or a sheep. I think one is a critical thinker on some, some specific subject, right? Like a mathematician is going to critically think about, math, and then like someone that is working within media is probably going to critically think within like the field of media. So I feel like everyone is to some extent a critical thinker in what they really care about. And those are the people who then like shape that field essentially. And so I think this critical thinking problem, if you will, like if you have like sheep following it, I think it's not bad. I mean, like the plus side that I can see is essentially you have people that are thinking for you if you trust them. The thing is like, do you trust them or not, right? Because like you have to like essentially, I don't know, like if you're a mathematician, you're not going to be worried about, being influenced to buy like the red or the blue bottle on Amazon, right? But then the person who is designing, they have to be thinking critically. And so like it's a trust issue, I think, more. So the question I feel like is more like, do you trust the people who are clearly thinking about what they're putting on the market?
Just the problem with that is that the people who know the most about the thing and are going to be the critical thinkers are probably the one who, because you know the most, it's probably because you work in that field, so you're going to be most biased. So yeah, you've also really interesting things. I just want to say that. But yeah, I like the way you talked about economics, and yeah, that can be applied to also just startups versus people like Google. Like the only search engine I know of that actually kind of rival Google a bit is Ecosia, because their thing is every like 30 searches they plant a tree. But other than that, like targets our generation really well. But other than that, like you can't take out the big guys because they're just so well reviewed over so long. And then you said some really things which I'm forgetting now. Oh yeah, the want to just be inactive and lazy outside of like, again, it's about like differentiating important decisions, and also mathematician case. Important decisions from non-important decisions to each person, right? Mathematician doesn't care about the water bottle or not. You're just trying to chill after all this thinking we're doing in our...
Okay, so I might have talked about this before, but do you guys know what paradox of choice is? So let's say that you go to a restaurant, right? And there's a huge menu. There's like 100 things, and you want maybe like 20 of those things look really good to you. And so you order one, and it's like pretty good, but then you think like, oh man, I should have gotten that other thing, and you're dissatisfied. Whereas if you go to a restaurant and they're only serving one thing to everyone, then you don't regret your choice. There's no space for regret. So I think the same idea of paradox of choice can be applied to something like Amazon, or like media directing all their attention to one thing. Because if you, like, whenever you're on an online economy, there's always so many options, and there's always so much space to be dissatisfied and think that you could have gotten something better if you'd ordered the other thing. But, if I'm looking for a water bottle again and I just go to University Hardware, there's probably one type of water bottle and I just get it, and that's that. So I think it also contributes to like our personal happiness and well-being, and it's a very like deep psychological thing.
Maybe we're also just focusing on buying products a bit, and I think that the concept of media is much larger than that. I think that media, the advertisements in media and their target of buying products isn't the only aspect of media. I think that you have the shaping of mindsets and the political things, the whole social everything that media ends up affecting.
So yeah, so if you take it to the like bigger aspects, as I said, I think there is a lot to say about, as I said before, trust. Because I don't think there is a problem with media trying to influence, or not necessarily influencing you, but shifting you in some direction or another. I think it's, I don't know, psychologically, I feel like you could at some point even prove that you're influenced by it. I just think that there is a positive side to that, which is it makes your life and the things that are not important to you when you're not thinking critically much easier. Because it's just you don't have to for every single thing in your life think, oh my God, what decision am I going to do? There's someone else who's presenting it to me in a like more like in a shorter version, faster, and then I have to decide from those, like it's like reading a synopsis essentially of everything. Like if you read the news, for example, in politics, you essentially have to trust that the guy writing the article is really portraying the candidates in the way that they actually are. And so I think, as I said, I think it's more of a trust issue. Like, do you trust the people? And I think it depends on, the regulation that you have, essentially, within each field of media, of there being like strict rules that allow to some certain objectivity, and if there is subjectivity, that that there is this subjectivity, like as a right of the person being influenced.
I think it's very hard to trust these sources, because, well, first of all of them will be subjective to some extent. I mean, like the classical thing is that we're creating bubbles of in social media and all of that, you know, and we only search for the sources that agree with us and with our positioning of things. And then in my country, for example, that I live in Brazil, right, we're going through very rough times with an extremely fascist presidency and government. And part of the way that that guy was elected, you know, like you look at him and you hear of him and you're like, how is this human being in the presidency? How was he elected, you know? The media, basically, right? And it's the same media that put the coup, like to take out Dilma Rousseff, that put Lula in jail, and that put Temer in power, and then put this guy in power. And we also had one thing that was really interesting. Oh, and also that put the dictatorship like years ago in power and all of that, you know. And because we have this main like TV streaming thing, which is global, terrible, historically, absolutely terrible. And it's in the back engine of all of the political changes that happened within Brazil. And we had one really interesting thing, which was the bombarding of fake news through WhatsApp on these elections. So part of the reason why Bolsonaro was elected was because all of these people through WhatsApp, because WhatsApp is extremely popular in Brazil, everyone has it. Everyone is in groups with people that they know,
Right.
and these groups were being bombarded also with information and like videos and fake news and stuff like that. And that was so big, Bolsonaro, like that there were these like artificial things that would like create those you know threads in WhatsApp, and that was so big that you know this guy got elected because of something like the social media of WhatsApp. And while this was known before the election, instead of the government maybe banning WhatsApp for some time, right? Because I think the right thing would be for that to happen. I don't know.
Yeah. So what I want to say to that, something quite interesting about the whole voting system is that because it's anonymous, you are forced to trust that all the other voters are, like the outcome is based on actual behavior, right? Like there's no way for any individual voter or even group of voters who band together and say who they voted for to actually verify if the numbers are legitimate, right? Because you can't know what other people did. Like that's the whole point. So yeah, it's like forced on trust. And then one thing I wanted to touch on, which you said earlier, which transitions to something else we were talking about, is when you were talking about reading the synopsis of things. This kind of, the idea of a synopsis is that it summarizes a lot of information because there's also too much information now. There's another factor. But the problem is the synopsis has to be as clickbaity as possible because there are so many synopsises still, nonetheless, we're still overwhelmed. And this goes into the whole clickbait culture and just spam of media on every single platform, whether it's like art on t-shirts and clothing or just Instagram or WhatsApp messages with automation. Like,
Hi, if you loved what you just saw, then make sure to check out the second part for this video and obviously leave a like and subscribe.